Welcome back to Nightly Nonsense, where we make, hopefully, some sense out of the nonsense, or we create nonsense
out of sense.
Out of sense, right? I have a very important question for you, Pastor Mark. Are you ready? Hypothetical. I've been thinking.
Bring it.
Okay, been thinking a lot about this particular topic. Been thinking about skydiving. Been thinking about that. If I was to jump out of an airplane, right?
Would I follow you?
No, because I would be pushing you first. Yes, right?
As Mo Howard would say, I'll lead the way, you go ahead.
Now, I've never skydived, have you?
No.
All right, so my understanding of skydiving would be something like this. Don't correct me if I'm wrong, because I want to think about it this way, right? That you have this fear and trembling, right, of jumping out of the plane. You finally jump or get pushed out of the plane, and you fall, right? And the best part about the ride is how long can you go without pulling the cord, right? How far can you fall without pulling the cord? Knowing that you got the cord there, it's going to save you, right? There's going to be an instant pullback.
It's not the fall that gets you.
It's the sudden stop.
The sudden stop.
That would kill you, right? But I was thinking about skydiving, and so I wanted to ask you, because I knew that you would answer this question honestly, right? If you jumped out of the plane with a parachute, how far? Let's say that you jumped at 20,000 feet, just for saying it, right? How many feet do you think you would go before you would pull the cord?
Till I can clear the plane.
So 19,900.
Yeah. It's like as soon as I clear the plane and that thing can go flying and not get caught in the propeller or any of the other parts and not drag me all over God's great heavens.
Yes, I see. I think I would pull it before I jumped.
Yeah, and hope it
just hope it followed me out.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. There you go.
I'm thinking about what God asks us to do sometimes, right? There are crazy things that God asks us to do. And really, it's with this kind of idea that, we have this parachute, right? God promises that if we're faithful, if we're obedient, if we do what he's called us to do, not that there's going to be some turbulence, not that we're not going to get scared, not that we're going to, but we got this parachute there, right?
Yeah.
But I think sometimes I panic, right, in these moments, and rather than enjoying the ride, the moment, I pull the cord really quickly, right? And mature Christians know, like, hey, listen, maybe we pull the cord a little bit later, right? Maybe we see what God has in this, and we think about things and pray and all of these things. I look at the nonsense around us. I look at our culture, and I see people panicking all the time, reacting to things, right? They're just pulling the cords left and right, rather than just let's see where this goes. Let's see what happens here. So give me some insights on maybe how what you think about this whole thing, and then how can we train up ourselves to maybe go a little bit further, and then a little bit further, and a little bit further.
Well, isn't that faith? I mean, I run into it. Have for 30 years of ministry, still do. We better not do that, Pastor. We better not do that. We've never done it that way before.
We want the same result, so let's do it the same way.
So there's, I have learned as a pastor to just let people share their fear, and then say, okay, this is what we're doing, though.
Yeah.
It's okay to be afraid.
Yep.
I think faith has a little bit of a fear factor to it.
Yeah.
But if all I'm doing is what I know to do, and my faith isn't being stretched, and faith is like a rubber band. If it's not stretched, it's no good.
Ooh.
We've all put rubber bands around rubber bands too big around some. It doesn't hold nothing. It's got to have a little tension.
Yep.
So, and now, understandably, I think it is wise to get godly counsel. I think it is good to pray about it. I heard it might be in one of his books. I can't remember which one now. Stephen Furtick said, and I never forgot it. He said on his best day, he's only 51% sure of God's will for his life.
Yep.
And how many times do we just say, well, let's see what happens?
Mm-hmm.
And how many times does that happen in the Bible? We see that a lot, where there's times that God makes it very clear. Coming in today, I felt God very clear nudging me to call someone. Okay, well, it didn't take much faith to do that. I just made a phone call. There's other times when God says, I want you to go do this.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make sense.
Yep.
it's making an arc.
Yep.
And as pastors, sometimes, people, they want the church to change. They want it to grow, but they don't want to do what it takes to grow and to change so that it will grow or people are welcome to it.
Yeah. We want the end result without the process.
And it's tough. It's really tough. I have a new board member. He's a young fella in his early 30s, and he goes, "Well, I've never been a board member before." I said, "It's okay. I can teach you."
Yep.
And there's some things you just got to learn as you go.
Sometimes we need to fall.
We need to fall.
Right.
And John Maxwell wrote a book on this. There's Richard Rohr wrote a book on failing.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you fail doesn't mean you're a failure.
Nope.
The old Japanese proverb, fall down 7, stand up 8. All right, what did we learn from this? That's how many, they say Alexander Graham Bell, how many times did he mess that, thousands before but that one made a difference in all our lives. We like someone else take a risk. So there, it's kind of funny with my wife, and I'm a little more of a risk taker than she is, but she's learned to just let me kind of go for it, and she just, goes along for the ride. Yeah, catch me. And probably has a few times. But I would rather take the chance. There's been so many things I've done in my lifetime since coming to Christ that I would have never done, I'm sure, had I not come to Christ.
Right. Yep.
That, I was scared out of my wits. Rafting or whitewater rafting in Wisconsin on number 1 rapids. But hey, number 1 is huge when I just don't like the ripples on the Allegheny River down in Warren, And I remember sitting there. I was up in Milwaukee, and I was working with the youth, and I'm sitting there. I'm one of the oarsmen, so there's a guy on each side. And the oarsman, you got the middle guy, and he's supposed to hang on to you. I looked at this kid. I said, "You let me go, and I die." I said, "I will come back and haunt you."
I will get you.
I didn't. It was awesome. It was a wonderful experience. Do I want to do it all the time? No, but it was good. It was a great experience. And you don't know. I remember in Harvey Collins' Intro to Fine Arts class at Olivet, Nazarene University. And Harvey was a quirky guy, but he knew his stuff, and it was great. And he says to all these people younger than me, they were right out of high school. I was 5 years out of high school, and he said this. He goes, "Don't come in here and tell me you don't like classical music. You do not know what you like."
Oh, that's a good point.
You don't know whether you like art. You don't know whether you like architecture. And I sat there for a minute and I thought, he is exactly right.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He's exactly right. And so I remember hearing, is it Haydn's The Clock? It's the movement called The Clock. And I just loved it. I just loved it. And I love classical music now to this day, partially because Harvey Collins challenged me to experience it.
See,
it's a beautiful thing.
I think that's the concept, right? I think we got these parameters in our culture, right? There seems to be, if I say this, if I do this, if I experience this, it's gonna be, it's all gonna, and we're so paranoid and ready to fail.
Yes.
That we don't want to do anything.
We don't even try.
That doesn't have a 100% success rate.
Yeah.
Right. And again, I think of that all the time. Like, if you're skydiving and you jump out of the plane, right? You don't think there's a chance, right? You can't think that way, that I'm going to fall and fail, right? That this parachute's going to open. Yeah. It's just going to, right? The thrill of skydiving is, how far do I go before I pull the cord, right?
Yeah.
And with God, I think of Abraham, and I think it's just we think that God showed up, chatted with Abraham, introduced himself. "Hi, I'm God. Hey, I'm Abraham." And then Abraham heard a voice, told him to leave and go, and he just did it.
Well, and how about this one, his son?
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't like that story.
Yep.
But God, I use this illustration sometimes about our comfort zone. Our comfort zone is framed in by fear.
Yep.
And the only way our comfort zone gets bigger is if we push through the fear. Ooh. It's like building a muscle. You have to break it down so it can get stronger.
Yep.
And if we would, So Maxwell wrote the book called Failing Forward.
Yep.
And Richard Rohr wrote the book called Falling Upward. That is one of the best teachers is failure. And you say, okay, well, that didn't work. So let's try something else. And I had a district superintendent, who used to say to me, it was the best advice probably ever got from a DS. Try something, Mark.
Yep.
And he said, and if that doesn't work, try something else. And if that doesn't work, try something else until you find something that works. And it may only work once. We at our church I'm at right now, we used to do a thing called Have Fun and Make Friends. It was a Wednesday night deal. There was some of the older people were inside praying. There was we were out there playing Foursquare. All that stuff. We had food. It was just a great time. We tried it the next year. It didn't work. It flopped. Okay, it was like striking the rock twice.
Yep.
Okay. Well, it worked once. It was great. We impacted some lives. We move on. So, matter of fact, it was funny as I saw a kid last fall at Tim Hortons, and he remembered. So all the pumpkin stuff was out. We used to mess with him, and we always called him Pumpkin because it would mess him up when we were playing Foursquare. Hey, Pumpkin, And so he was. So I walk in there. It's early in the morning with these friends of ours. And he sees me and he goes, I was just telling him, Pastor, about how you guys would always call me Pumpkin.
There you go.
This was probably 6-7 years ago. And he remembers
it.
So we thought, oh, well, you've got to do it again. Maybe it was for that moment. And maybe that thing you did was for that moment, God preparing you for the next big thing that he had you to do.
Yeah. Well, I think, again, we need to develop a culture within our churches that creates a non-fear of failing.
And giving them permission to fail. It's okay if it doesn't work.
Right, listen, go, try this. If
Try
it doesn't work, we'll try
something else,
But we also need to have a success rate,
yes,
right? That says, hey, you know what, we did this for a year, and it touched one kid's life. That 6 years later, he's talking about it.
Yeah.
Right? So the ones matter. We lose track of the Phillips in the Bible.
Yes.
That got called out of successful ministry to go talk to one eunuch.
Yes.
Right? And that is just as important as speaking to the thousands and to the tens of thousands.
So the nonsense is to not try.
It's like, don't jump.
Is to not jump. Now I would rather hang glide, I think, than jump.
I don't.
But
I think probably you're right.
Hang gliding is one of the safest sports there is, actually.
Well, there you go.
But I got to go in tandem first.
Maybe we should try it together.
Oh, we could.
Down
in North Carolina at Kitty Hawk, they have hang gliding down there on the. So at least if you land, you go into the ocean, you get hit by a shark, you don't hit the ground.
So have you been to Darien Lake?
I have not.
Amusement park. They have this sky glider thing, right?
Oh.
They drag you up way, way, way up in the air. And then they tell you, right? So you can go up there in like 2s or 3s or whatever. So we went up there as a school competition one time, and it was me and these two school secretaries, right? Yeah. And we get dragged way, way, way up in the air, and it's just a giant swing, right?
Yeah.
But they tell you, they say, here's what's going to happen. We're going to count down 3, 2, 1, and then hold your breath and pull the lever, and then you go. You just swing, right? They let you go.
Okay.
And you swing out.
Yes.
It's awesome, right? Except for they tell you, like, listen, when you get to the 1, just take your breath in and you'll be good, right? So I get up there with these 2 secretaries, and they go 3, 2, 1, and we don't go anywhere. And I look to my right to the one secretary who's got hold of the string, and she's got this big grin on her face. And as soon as I look at her, she pulls it, right? I didn't hold my breath in anything. I'm screaming the whole way down the whole thing, and I thought, you know what? I survived it. It was an okay thing.
And then after it's done,
you want to do it
again.
Let's
go do it again.
Right? Then you're telling everybody, it's the greatest thing in the world. You need to do it again. But
that's the one that kills you.
Yeah, it's exactly right. So, hey, we're going to leave it right there. Nightly nonsense, making some sense out of the nonsense all around you. Don't be afraid. Jump out of the plane and free fall for a little bit before you pull the cord. We'll see you next time.